Top 10 Horrible Diseases That Came from Animals. Did you know over portion of the irresistible illnesses people experience come from creatures? Researchers gauge that creatures spread more than 6 out of each 10 known irresistible illnesses. Many are destructive and can prompt episodes, for example, the current COVID-19 pandemic. At the point when the harmful germs in creatures send to people, this is known as a zoonosis or zoonotic infection. While creatures can be charming, agreeable, or scrumptious, be wary in the event that they are tainted. Peruse on to find out around 10 awful zoonotic illnesses that exist and how you may get them. Number 10. Toxoplasmosis. How Toxoplasma parasites skim so quickly. Headline Science. Toxoplasmosis is a parasitic disease brought about by a microorganism called Toxoplasma gondii, or T. gondii. This parasite exists all over the place, in air, ashore, in the ocean, and in most warm-blooded creatures. Be that as it may, its essential hosts are house felines. The microorganism explicitly replicates inside the feline's guts, not a hard-felt special night spot. It is here and there otherwise called the mind control illness since rodents contaminated with the parasite show strange practices and become simpler prey to felines. T. gondii can likewise increment hazardous practices in humans. People can contract toxoplasmosis through contact with tainted feline dung or by burning through defiled crude vegetables or half-cooked meat. T. gondii as a rule enters our bodies as an egg and covers up in the cerebrum, heart, or skeletal muscle tissue. At the point when it develops, it turns into a functioning parasite known as a tachyzoite. A tachyzoite can rapidly increase and spread to assault body tissues with restricted and vulnerable defenses. Toxoplasmosis influences up to 2 billion individuals internationally. The vast majority will have no perceptible manifestations and don't need treatment for toxoplasmosis. Up to 20% will have gentle side effects, for example, swollen lymph hubs or influenza-like hurts. In uncommon cases, extreme diseases can prompt vision misfortune, cerebrum harm, loss of motion, schizophrenia, excited heart tissues. On the off chance that cerebrum harm proceeds without treatment, particularly in individuals with powerless insusceptible frameworks, toxoplasmosis can be fatal. Number 9. Salmonellosis. What is Salmonella? Salmonellosis is a bacterial contamination brought about by the microbes Salmonella. You can discover the Salmonella microorganisms in homegrown and wild creatures, including pigs, cows, felines, canines, poultry, birds, reptiles, and creatures of land and water. Contaminated creatures frequently don't give indications of the infection, so try to wash in the wake of taking care of them. For instance, in the event that you have a pet turtle, it can have Salmonella on its body and any place in its tank. Salmonella on your hands can prompt contamination or spread to others and surfaces. Salmonella is additionally beautiful and strong and can exist all through the whole evolved way of life. People regularly contract the microbes from devouring sullied food sources like eggs, meat, and milk. Cook your dinners thoroughly. Although Salmonella isn't pretty much as deadly as different sicknesses on this rundown, it is a significant worldwide reason for diarrheal infections. It can likewise cause genuine side effects for individuals with debilitated resistant manifestations, including kids and the old. For these individuals, the related parchness can demonstrate danger. Different side effects of Salmonella include stomach torment, heaving, loose bowels, transforming bones into liquid. Number 8. Anthrax, Bacillus anthracis. Bacillus anthracis. A spore-shaping microorganism causes Bacillus anthracis sickness. You can generally discover it in herbivore well-evolved creatures like pigs, dairy cattle, sheep, camels, gazelles, and goats. The microbe's spores can make do for significant stretches and effectively spreads noticeable all around. They become initiated in our bodies. Bacillus anthracis manifestations incorporate fevers, rankles, swollen lymph hubs, and liquid development in the lungs. The death pace of Bacillus anthracis relies upon the openness strategy. You can get Bacillus anthracis by breathing in spores, eating half-cooked meat from tainted creatures, or taking care of items like fleece and stows away from contaminated creatures. The deadliest is through inward breath, with a death pace of 80% or higher, even with treatment. Gastrointestinal bacillus anthracis from half-cooked meat has a death pace of 25% to 75%. Cutaneous contamination from taking care of items is roughly 20%. Cutaneous bacillus anthracis is the most well-known and simplest to fix with antibiotics. Anthrax isn't infectious from one human to another contact. Nonetheless, it tends to be utilized as a bioterrorism weapon. For instance, in 2001, a bacillus anthracis assault happened when fearmongers sent letters containing the microorganism's spores, contaminated 17 individuals, and executed 5. Number 7. Rabies. What happens when a human gets rabies? Rabies is a horrible viral infection that influences all warm-blooded vertebrates, including people. A tainted creature will have the rabies infection in its spit and cerebrum tissue. They generally spread the infection to people through nibbles. The infection can likewise spread by coming into contact with open cuts or wounds. Bat and canine chomps are normal wellsprings of people getting rabies. Nonetheless, skunk, fox, and raccoon chomp cases additionally exist. While a progression of shots, including immunizations, can fix rabies, the outcome is frequently lethal if the treatment isn't given not long after openness. As per the CDC, around 59,000 passings are brought about by rabies around the world. The early manifestations of rabies incorporate fevers and cerebral pains. This infection will advance quickly to a neurologic ailment, prompting loss of motion, disarray, trouble gulping, and fomentation before death. Rabies can likewise cause other sudden manifestations like hydrophobia, the dread of water. Keep your pets from getting rabies by getting them their legitimate shots from the vet. Number 6. Zoonotic influenza. The most effective method to prevent and survive avian flu. The most predominant zoonotic flu is the avian flu infections, especially the AH5 and AH7N9 infections, otherwise called bird influenza. You can contract avian flu infections from poultry like chickens, turkeys, and ducks. This infection can move to people straightforwardly or in a roundabout way from openness to tainted live or dead poultry and defiled conditions, for example, bird markets. Eating crude dishes with tainted poultry blood can likewise prompt disease. The pig flu infections are another infection that influences people. You can contract it by being near contaminated pigs or their living pens. While the sort of infection will decide the hatching time frame and seriousness of manifestations, most flu cases start with respiratory indications like sore throats, fevers, and hacks. For the pig flu infections, manifestations are generally gentle and seldom announced. The most forceful manifestations are from the avian flu infections, which additionally have the most elevated casualty rate among comparative infections. For instance, the H5N1 infection has a death pace of about 60% in people. It can cause side effects of the runs, regurgitating, interior dying, chest dormant, and intricacies, for example, multi-organ brokenness, pneumonia, hypoxemic respiratory disappointment and septic stun. Number 5. Arbovirus. Arboviruses and their vectors. Arbovirus alludes to arthropod-borne infections, like dengue fever, Zika infection, and West Nile infection. Mosquito nibbles are a typical transmitter of arboviruses. Various arthropods convey distinctive arboviruses. For instance, dengue emerges from the chomp of a contaminated Aedes aegypti mosquito. The West Nile infection spreads from mosquitoes that contracted the infection subsequent to benefiting from contaminated birds or ponies. Each arbovirus additionally presents various manifestations and death rates. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, reports around 400 million individuals contract dengue fever every year, and 22,000 kick the bucket subsequently. Serious instances of dengue fever will have manifestations including spewing blood, consistent regurgitating, blood in your defecations, seeping from the gums or nose and feeling drained or anxious. For West Nile infection, Most contaminated individuals don't become ill or have just gentle side effects. Extreme responses, notwithstanding, influence the sensory systems and can prompt loss of motion, meningitis, encephalitis, or demise. Meningitis and encephalitis are the two sorts of aggravations or swellings in the cerebrum that can prompt demise. Number 4. Malaria. Jungle Fever Life Cycle Part 1, Human Host, 2016. Albeit additionally sent by mosquitoes, malaria isn't an infection, however it is a sickness brought about by the Plasmodium parasite. The Anopheles mosquito can have the parasite that causes malaria. Mosquitoes use salivation to forestall blood clumps when they nibble people. The parasite is sent into our circulatory system through this salivation. Once in our bodies, the parasites increase in the liver, at that point contaminate and obliterate red platelets. As per the World Health Organization, WHO, around 229 million individuals internationally contracted malaria in 2019. Around the same time, roughly 409,000 kicked the bucket, with youngsters under 5 years of age representing 67% of passings. Contingent upon the strain of the parasite, malaria indications can be gentle or serious. Gentle indications are more influenza-like and incorporate fevers, migraines, muscle hurts, heaving, the runs, and sluggishness. For more serious cases, indications will include impeded cognizance, spasms, respiratory pain and strange dying. With serious loss of red platelets, malaria can likewise cause pallor, imperative organ brokenness, and jaundice. Jaundice is the yellow shading of the eyes and skin. Number 3. Ebola virus disease, EVD. The Ebola infection sickness, EVD, was previously known as Ebola hemorrhagic fever. Wild creatures can send EVD to people. You can get tainted in the event that you contact a contaminated creature's organic liquids, particularly those discovered sick or dead. Instances of creatures that can contaminate people include porcupines, elands, natural product bats of the Tropididae family, monkeys, chimpanzees and gorillas. Once in the human populace, EVD turns out to be considerably more infectious. Human death rates differed somewhere in the range of 25% and 90% with every episode. It is basic for medical care laborers to get tainted subsequent to treating sick patients. Direct contact with the accompanying can prompt disease, blood or body liquids of somebody who is debilitated or has kicked the bucket from EVD, debased items with EVD-infected body liquids. The side effects can be abrupt, including migraines, weariness, fevers, muscle agony, and sore throats. At that point it can prompt trashes, regurgitating, looseness of the bowels, or more serious side effects, for example, disabled kidney and liver capacity, inward or outside dying and low white platelets. Number 2. HIV and AIDS. How a sick chimp led to a global pandemic, the rise of HIV. The human immunodeficiency infection, HIV, has been a worldwide medical problem since researchers originally recognized it during the 1980s. Toward the finish of 2019, WHO assessed 38 million individuals all around the world are living with HIV. The infection focuses on the safe framework and debilitates our body's safeguards against diseases. AIDS is the last phase of HIV disease and includes building up specific tumors. HIV is a sort of lentivirus like the simian immunodeficiency virus, SIV, that assaults monkeys and primates in susceptible manifestations. Researchers have discovered that HIV strains are firmly identified with a strain found in chimpanzees and a strain found in dirty mangabas. The most widely recognized hypothesis of how the SIV strain became HIV in people is that trackers got the infection from eating the chimpanzee or monkey as bushmeat or getting tainted blood into wounds. The SIV, once in the human body, at that point adjusted to become HIV. Introductory indications of HIV in people incorporate weight reduction, fever, loose bowels, and swollen lymph hubs will be predominant. As the infection debilitates the invulnerable framework, it can likewise form into serious ailments, for example, bacterial diseases, cryptococcal meningitis, tuberculosis, TB, and malignant growths like Kaposi's sarcoma and lymphomas. There are treatment regimens that can smother HIV and permit tainted individuals in susceptible frameworks to recuperate towards fending off diseases. Presently, long-lasting antiretroviral treatment, ART, forestalls transmission of the infection as a quest for a HIV fix proceeds. Number 1 Novel Coronavirus, COVID-19. Coronavirus animation. What happens if you get coronavirus? The tail COVID called SARS-CoV-2 caused the COVID-19 infection that turned pandemic in 2020. While hereditary examination of the infection recommends it began in bats, authorities in China presume the underlying flare-up in Wuhan connects to a fish market. Two hypotheses hypothesize that the pangolins, or snakes, the market sold could be the middle-of-the-road creature that moved the infection from bats to people. The indications are different, relying upon the strain and who is tainted. It can go from gentle manifestations of sore throat, cerebral pains, looseness of the bowels, and skin rashes to more extreme pointers, loss of taste or smell, persevering chest dormant, rest problems and neurological complexities. Since research on sickness beginnings requires significant investment, we don't realize precisely how the infection began to infect people. We do realize it has had dangerous impacts and is very infectious. Toward the start of April 2021, there have been over 132.4 million instances of individuals contaminated all around the world and over 2.87 million passings from COVID-19,